Hi, it's Terry Ryder from Hotspotting, bringing you my regular weekly feature at this time, Hotspot of the Week. And today I want to talk about regional Victoria in a couple of different ways by which we measure property markets around Australia in terms of their health or otherwise. Regional Victoria is the #1 market jurisdiction anywhere in Australia right now, both in terms of the number of locations with rising demand and also in terms of the number of locations with really strong price growth happening right now. And yes, there are markets around Australia currently producing really good price growth. You can be forgiven for believing there are none, given the tone in mainstream media, which tends to be fairly obsessed with what's happening in Sydney and Melbourne and extrapolating that into a national decline. But regional Victoria has been going gangbusters in the last year or so and still is in terms of locations with really big price growth and places where sales demand is rising and are likely to be producing strong price growth in the near future. So with our latest survey, every quarter we survey sales activity in every town and suburb in Australia to see where demand is rising or falling or going sideways. And we've found 51 markets in regional Victoria with rising demand, and that's the highest since we started these quarterly sales surveys about 4 years ago. The only jurisdiction in Australia that's got more growth markets in that regard than regional Victoria right now is actually Adelaide. So regional Victoria, 51 markets where demand is rising, and there's another 90 locations where the demand is pretty steady, consistent, or what we might call plateau markets. Now, in addition to that, we have an even larger number of markets where there is solid to strong to substantial price growth. In the last 12 months, we found 118 locations, towns or suburbs throughout regional Victoria where in the last 12 months, the median house price has risen by 5% or more, and that includes 85 where the median house price has grown by 10% or more. And of those, 25 have grown by more than 20%. And the leading locations, towns in regional Victoria like Clunes, Macedon, Bunyip, Wonthaggi, and those are the ones that have grown by 30% or more in the last 12 months. Amazing growth in anyone's standards. And then locations with almost that high growth are Nor Lane, a suburb of Geelong, up 29%, Trentham, regional town, up 28%, Port Fairy, down in the far southwest of Victoria, up 27%. A couple of other Geelong suburbs, including Corio, up 26%, the town of Warragul, sort of south-east of Melbourne, up 24%. Then other towns like Officer, Romsey, Cockatoo, up 22%. A couple of other suburbs of Geelong. Geelong features quite prominently on this list of high growth areas in the last 12 months. Whittington and Dented Head, both up 22%. There's many more. 25 locations, either suburbs of places like Geelong or country towns or regional towns where they have recorded median price growth of more than 20% in the last 12 months. Now, in terms of locations where demand is rising, the leading market now is the city of Bendigo. It was previously Ballarat. 12 to 18 months ago it was Geelong, but Geelong sort of passed its peak in terms of that. It was overtaken by Ballarat. Ballarat was the #1 market in regional Victoria in terms of the number of suburbs with rising demand, but it's now been overtaken by Bendigo, which is a little bit behind Ballarat in the cycle, but it's certainly starting to rise. So we've found 10 suburbs in Bendigo where sales activity is rising and starting to translate into solid price growth. Not as big as some of those areas I mentioned earlier with 20% plus growth. That is yet to come for Bendigo, which is just getting started on a growth spurt. Ballarat, which has previously been the leader in terms of rising demand, has got a number of suburbs where prices are up by 5%, 8%, 10% or more, including half a dozen where the growth has been 15%, 17%, and one suburb of Golden Point is up 21% in its median price in the last 12 months. A new contender has emerged amongst the locations of regional Victoria. In our last couple of quarterly surveys, we've found that the towns of the Latrobe Valley are starting to rise. Places like Traralgon and Churchill, Newborough, Morwell and Moe, some of those kind of down market towns in the industrial Latrobe Valley, a location that was expected to experience perhaps economic decline because of the closure of some coal-fired power stations like Hazelwood. But various levels of government have invested quite big in this area to make sure that economic decline doesn't happen and that unemployment doesn't rise. And it seems to have been very successful because demand has been rising in the markets of those towns, and we're starting to see prices follow suit. Very affordable. Some of those towns have median prices below 200,000, notwithstanding recent growth. So that's a new market which might be of interest to some investors looking for cheap prices and pretty good rental yields in an economy that seems to be pretty solid and growing as a result of that government investment that I mentioned a moment ago. Geelong's still a solid market. It's well past its peak in terms of activity, but we have found in this latest survey 24 suburbs of the city of Greater Geelong where median prices have risen by more than 10% in the last 12 months. And that includes Corio, North Lane, Newcombe, St Leonards, Whittington and Indented Head, which have all risen by more than 20%. So it's, exceptional, amazing growth by anyone's standards, and it's still happening out there. These are places where prices are still rising, contrary to that general sensationally negative media that is hitting us relentlessly day by day, telling us prices are falling everywhere. There are a number of other regions where demand has passed its peak, but price growth remains high, and they include local government areas like Cardinia, includes towns like Pakenham, Officer and Emerald. Then you've got the local government area of Bawbaw, towns like Warragul, Druin, Trafalgar, prices rising still strongly in these places. Mitchell Shire, places like Kilmore and Broadford. Down on the surf coast, locations such as Torquay and Apollo Bay, prices rising strongly there. The Bass Coast, towns such as Wonthaggi, Inverloch and Cowes, and the Macedon Ranges north of Melbourne, where towns including Gisborne, Kyneton, Woodend and Romsey have had very strong price growth in the last 12 months. It's further afield as well, not all just locations within striking distance of Melbourne. Out in the far southwest, Portland market has been rising steadily over the last couple of years. Warrnambool, not far from there, is also rising. We're seeing good price growth there. And Port Fairy, not far from Warrnambool, its median house price has risen 27% in the last 12 months, and there's now 620,000 median price. Growth markets all over the place in Melbourne. Little town of Maryborough in the central goldfields is rising, both in terms of sales activity and prices. Out in East Gippsland, locations such as Lakes Entrance and Bairnsdale, rising markets there. And there's also strong signs of uplift in places like Wodonga at the New South Wales border, Wangaratta and Shepparton. So it's just a very strong story of growth markets, including those where prices in the last 12 months have grown a lot, and those where sales activity is starting to rise, hinting that prices in these places will follow suit. And heading that list, I would suggest, is the important regional city of Bendigo, which has followed Ballarat into an upcycle. A lot of buyers out of Melbourne looking for better affordability as investors and better yields compared to Melbourne, or a different lifestyle and affordability for people who are actually looking to buy as home buyers. So a lot of buyers out of Melbourne, both investors and home buyers, targeting places like Ballarat and Bendigo, and that's partly responsible for the rise in those markets. So regional Victoria, for my money, the strongest market in Australia right now. It's not the only one. Plenty of growth happening in regional Tasmania, regional New South Wales, and increasingly regional Queensland. as well as one or two capital cities like Hobart and Canberra. So plenty of growth to be found. And the beauty of it is, for investors looking for something a bit more appealing than the situation in Melbourne and Sydney, decline and also very high prices. These are places where the prices are affordable and the rental yields are a lot more palatable than you will find in the two biggest cities. So there you have it. Hotspot of the week, a broad span across regional Victoria, which currently is throwing up multiple future hotspots and one or two current ones. That's it for now. Let's do it again same time next week. Terry Ryder signing off. Talk to you again soon.